In today's video, we're going to tie into a fully grommeted Gannaway leather pipe bag. Stay tuned. Well, hello everybody, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please think about giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that bell icon to be notified of when I post new videos. I also teach Skype and online lessons if you want more personalized instruction, but more on that later. Alright everybody, in this bag here I have a Gannaway pipe bag made in New Zealand, medium-sized, zipper grommeted leather pipe bag. Let's open this thing up. Ah, the smell. Okay, all comes out together. So you can see this is very much like a synthetic bag in that it is fully grommeted. There are grommets for everything. And on this particular bag, you even attach the chanter stock with a Jubilee or hose clamp. So there is no tying in when tying into this bag. Everything is done mechanically. So what all does this come with? Comes with a leather strip. We're actually going to put that around the chanter opening when we get to that for protecting the bag from the hose clamp. It comes with some primer. We'll talk about how to use this and when. And the instructions. We'll review those, but you can see it's got 5 clamps, and it also has some T-zip to lubricate the zipper. What tools will you need other than what comes in the kit? Well, you'll either need a flat-headed screwdriver or a socket. Now, for the hose clamps this came with, the socket is a 1/4 inch socket. I prefer, if at all possible, to use a socket on a screwdriver handle. This is a 1/4 inch sized overall socket driver on a screwdriver handle. The thing is, if it slips, this is all kind of rounded on the edge. You're not going to in any real way damage the leather. This is quite sharp. If you were to slip and have that hit the bag, it could possibly damage the bag. So while a screwdriver can work, we're going to be using a socket driver today. So before we put any of the stocks through these grommets, we're going to lubricate the rubber on them with a little bit of just some liquid dish soap right here. So we're going to get a little bit of dish soap. And I'm just kind of put it in, and we're starting with the base drone stock. I always like to start with the base drone stock. And we can just unzip the bag, which makes this super easy. And I'm actually going to put just a little bit of that same just detergent around the base of the base stock. And how can you tell which one's the base? Well, if you put the bag under your left arm, assuming you have a standard left arm bag, which is the side we play the pipes on for those that might not be aware, it's going to be one of the 3 that are kind of in the middle of the bag, the one closest to you when it's under your left side. So we're going to feed that in through. And today we're tying in a set of SL1 McRae pipes. These were sent to me by Jeremy Downs at Lone Star Piper. And you can check him out at the address you see right there. A beautiful set of pipes. I look forward to making some sound on them. So how far are you sticking this in through the bag? You want to get the bottom of the groove here pretty much level with the inside of the bag. And I think we've done quite a good job with the base right here. Put on the clamp. I'm just putting it on. Now try not to scrape up your stock while doing this. And I like having the clamp facing on the inside of the whole thing, kind of close to the middle tenor. That way you don't have anything possibly poking you down like into your arm while playing. And again, a socket driver really speeds this up over a screwdriver and doesn't hurt anything. So probably worth picking up a small socket set. You can probably get one for 15 bucks or less. Now in tightening these, you want them quite snug, but not overly tight. We want to get this airtight, but we don't want to crack the wood. You can always tighten it later if you find that it's leaking any air, but I don't suspect it will. So moving on to the middle. And then for the middle stock, you can see I have put a piece of tape around this. So if you're disassembling another set of pipes that you've already had in a bag, I would mark the middle somehow, because that way it won't get mixed up. You want to try to keep all the parts of your bagpipe together if at all possible. So all the parts that made up your middle should remain the middle. And on these McRae pipes, the middle top is actually bored to a slightly different internal diameter, something's different about it, and it's actually marked, but the bottom section is not. So again, middle, mark it some way so you can tell it apart. This one, I'm going to face into the base stock now. Doesn't really matter. I still like having them on this plane rather than that plane. And just making sure, yep, the bottom of that is still right where I want with the groove level with the rubber on the bottom side of the grommet. All right, that one done. Moving on to the outside. See, this isn't taking very long at all. I think it's an incredible world we live in that we can have all the convenience of a synthetic bag when it comes to tying in and attaching the various bagpipe parts while also having all the benefits of hide. Hide bags tend to deal with moisture better. When I'm playing on a hide bag, I don't need anything but a tube trap typically to keep moisture off of my drone reeds and such, whereas if I'm on a synthetic bag, I often feel I need to have some sort of more convoluted moisture control system because the bags don't tend to deal with moisture quite as well as a hide bag. Now for this one, I'm actually facing the grommet in. The base is facing in, the outside's facing in, but it means they're kind of facing each other. Again, that's just to make sure that none of the parts are poking you where you might be holding the bagpipe against your body. Okay, that one's in. Moving on to the blowpipe stock. Now, if you're taking a look, you got 2 stocks left. The base is going to be the longest. The 2 tenors are going to be the 2 that are matched and the next tallest. And then you have 2 more left. You want to make sure that the blowpipe stock is the shortest of the 2. On some pipes, they're quite close, but the blowpipe in every pipe I've ever seen is still shorter. And I did make the mistake one time of mixing this up, not paying enough attention when I tied in my own pipes. And I was having some problems getting my chanter in tune reliably. And when I realized I had the wrong stock in, well, that fixed everything. So use the shortest one for your blowpipe. And you can see on this bag, the blowpipe stock is already angled. The grommet is put in at a lovely angle, so this one looks like it'll come back at you perfectly. So this one, because of the angle, it's kind of the grommet on the inside's coming across at a bit of an angle. I want to make sure that the combing and beading, if your pipe has that, is more or less level with the outside of the grommet here so that it's being angled back correctly. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this one up just a little bit before installing, so I'm not having to turn it quite as many times on the pipe. There we go. I like that. On this one, it doesn't really matter where you have the clamp. You're not holding this one against your body in any way, not the blowpipe stock. All right, and moving on to the chanter. So, does it feed through this way? No, it's going to have to go in. This is quite a small opening. That is a good thing. It's going to keep it, well, it's going to make it more easily airtight. So feeding the chanter stock in through the neck. Don't be surprised if the chanter stock takes a little bit more wrestling than the others to get through. There we go. We have the chanter stock through. Now, this is somewhat adjustable in height. You have a little bit of room here. I'm going to, I feel my groove is right about there, probably 1.25 inches from the front and maybe about 1 inch from the back. Go ahead and put the leather ring on here. And this time, I'm actually going to have to open this hose clamp a little bit to get it on there. So to take a look at this up close, you have the bag itself, you have the chanter stock, the leather ring, and the hose clamp centered on the leather ring over where the groove is, and now to tighten. And you want it pretty darn snug, but you don't want to crack anything, and you can always tighten it again later if you think it's leaking some air from here. All right, just like that, we have all of them tied in just a few minutes. That didn't take long at all. I'm talking through this whole thing, and you can still see it didn't take very long. So the next step, I'm going to go ahead and put some T-zip along the zipper before we do anything else. Now, I don't think I've ever seen a bag leak from an unlubricated zipper, but no point in risking anything. And I tend to just run the T-zip along one side of the zipper, and then grabbing, you always want to support the bag very firmly You don't want to just over here. I'm actually holding on to the structure of the zipper. You can kind of see it through the leather. Same thing, I'm going to open it again. That's already so much easier. Go back through. I'm going to kind of wipe what little is kind of on the top around the whole thing. Back down, back up. Now, let's test this thing and see how tight it might be without priming. Now, what I'm really listening for here is air leaks. I don't expect the bag to be completely tight yet because it hasn't been primed. There's a two-part process with these Gannaway bags. You first prime it, and then when the primer has set up over a few hours or whatever, you then can season it with a different product. But first, I just want to make sure that the actual everything we've done here is airtight before we add the primer. This blowpipe here, a universal blowpipe that came with the set, has an integral valve. So we're going to stick that in. Everything else is corked. Bag is zipped. Moment of truth. Look at that. I hear no leaks. And to be honest, I blew out a cork. Try this again, but this bag is clearly very tight. This bag has not been primed, and again, it is very taut right now. I can't get any additional air now. I'm still going to prime it. So while this is sitting here, let's read about this. Gannaway leather primer is essential for newly fitted Gannaway pipe bags. Also recommended that all Gannaway hide bags are reprimed at least once a year to maintain maximum tightness of your pipe bag. Primer is water soluble. Cork stocks. Pour in contents of bottle into bag. Roll contents around and inflate. Continue rolling for 5 minutes. Drain and hang up for 6 hours, followed by dressing the bag with Highlander dressing. Please note, Gannaway leather primer contains no preservatives, so will expire if not used within several months of manufacture. To test if a strong odor emits when the lid is removed, do not use the bottle. So if you buy primer in advance, I've actually kept it in the fridge. I let it get to room temperature like overnight before I use it, but when I've done that, I've not had any of these bottles expire, and you can always buy more. But even after this much time, even unprimed, that's how little air could go inside this medium Gannaway bag. So let's go ahead and prime it. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to take these corks out. Why? Because this bag has a zipper, I'm going to cork it from the inside. That'll keep the primer and eventually the seasoning from getting into the drone stocks at the very least. You could also put a paper towel down each stock. I've done that before, but if you can avoid the seasoning getting in there at all, you should do that. Or the primer, or whatever. Can we get a... And that is just too narrow. I'm not going to be able to stopper up the chanter stock from the inside. That's fine. And you don't want to stopper up the blowpipe because you still need to inflate the bag. I'm sure this doesn't need to be shaken, but just to make sure any contents are kind of in there, mixed together, I'm just going to pour this whole thing in. And 5 minutes starts now. All right, that's 5 minutes of rolling. Nothing has leaked out anywhere. There's no liquid coming out anywhere, and I've not been able to put any appreciable amount of air in 5 minutes. This is a very tight pipe bag, and again, no actual tying had to occur. It was all through clamps, easily done with either a socket or a screwdriver, and so you don't have to have some arcane knot knowledge to get a hide bag going for you if you wanted to go with one of these Gannaway fully grommeted bags. Now that you've primed the bag and you're ready to let it drain, you want to vent this stopper very slowly. There's quite a bit of pressure in this bag. There we go. Couple of dribbles coming out there. You don't want it popping out. You don't want it like having primer go everywhere. At least it's not red hot like Hardy's Airtight might be, but you still don't want it to get everywhere. So now there's a little hanger on the bottom here. You could tie a piece of string to it or use like the end of a wire coat hanger or something, but I'm gonna go let this drain. I do this in a bathroom, like off the shower, and then clean it up. Don't leave that mess for your spouse to clean up. Take care of yourself and all of that. Don't surprise me. Don't hang it up over the kitchen sink unless, again, your spouse is a piper. No one needs to see that. But I'm gonna go let this drain, and then we'll be back on how to season this bag. All right, 6 hours have successfully passed. This has been drained and is basically dry on the inside. There's just the tiniest little bit of a couple dots of moisture in there. Let's take a look. I can see that. So you got that one little stream. I'm not going to worry about that. It hasn't been leaking out of here for quite some time. So we're going to go ahead, stopper it all up. I still have the stoppers on the inside of the stocks here. And put one in the channer. Let's make sure this thing is tight before we get on to seasoning. That, my friends, is tight and a good-looking pipe bag, nice and comfortable. Let's read how to apply the Highlander pipe bag dressing. I keep calling it seasoning. It's dressing in the case of the Gannaway brand here. All right, so this absorbs moisture and keeps reeds in constant condition and free from bacteria. Easy to use, no heating. Use a quarter of this bottle, a small amount down the chanter stock, and the balance down a tenor stock or through the zip opening. So we'll be using the zip opening on this bag. Rub around until the inside is covered, then inflate the bag. Pour or wipe out the surplus. We are going to actually wipe it out after a few minutes of rubbing it. Clean the stocks thoroughly. A light film of dressing should remain evident. So before you pour it down the chanter stock, if you have a zipper on one of your Gannaway bags, close that down. I'm also going to put a stopper in the blowpipe. Remember, these are stoppered up on the inside. Make sure they're there so this isn't going everywhere. Make sure this is kind of well mixed. We're going to pour just a little bit down here. I like to try to pour it right down the middle to get as little on the sides of the stock as possible. And there we go. All right, I've gone ahead with now 5 stoppers. Have the stopper in the chanter stock. So now we're going to unzip the bag and pour the remaining about a quarter. And you can see here on the edge of the bottle, it's probably too much light on here, but there's actually a gap in the label so you can see about how much seasoning is left. There we go. Let's go ahead and put the lid on this so it doesn't spill and make a mess. I'm going to re-zipper up the bag, and now I'm going to start rubbing. Trying to get that seasoning over as much of the inside of the leather as I can. We're probably going to reach in here in a few minutes and actually use our hands and fingers and kind of finger paint it into any places it's not getting. But for now, I'm going to try to actually rub the leather together. I almost feel this is like the breaking in of a mitt if you were ever playing baseball. Just part of the process. All right, so let's go ahead, unzip, open it up, and we get fairly... You can see it's covering pretty well. It's not overly thick. It's pretty nicely covered even now, but you know what? I have some paper towels down here. I'm just going to use my hand, and I'm going to go in and just kind of make sure, so like right here, there's not quite enough. I can feel the seasoning that came in from the chanter stock pour, though. There's kind of a little puddle right there, and I am going to use that to, there we go, really get it all over. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm using my hand. I don't know if anyone else does that. But for these Gannaway bags, this seasoning is room temperature and easy to work with. Continuing to coat all the bag. So the seasoning here, really more about absorbing extra moisture than keeping the bag tight. Remember, the primer is what was used to make the bag airtight. This is to control the amount of moisture in the bag. Now I'm going to let this set up for a few minutes. We'll come back and I'm going to take some paper towels and wipe out any extra. I'm going to give it, I don't know, probably about 10 minutes. I don't know if it really absorbs in or not, but I'm going to go wash my hands anyways, and before I make a mess with everything again, but we'll be back. All right, we're back. It's been a little bit of time. I think it's just fine to start wiping out the extra seasoning. Go ahead and paper towels, and then just start making sure there's not lots of gooey mess everywhere. As they said, they feel it will shorten the life of the bag. They just need a light coating. So while I was using my fingers to kind of paint it all around, you could use like a silicone basting brush, or if you don't have a zipper and you have a Gannaway bag, I got very good coverage just rubbing it together. You're going to want to spend a few more minutes doing that, but you can definitely get good coverage just rubbing the skin of the leather into itself. Looks like maybe just a little bit more out right there. And just like that, we have a light sheen. See, that is not a bunch of thick goo. You don't see runs of the seasoning anywhere. It's just a nice light coating of seasoning through the bag, feeling around, and that's feeling pretty good everywhere I'm feeling in the bag. So with that, we now have an airtight bag. I'm going to go ahead and give it one more final test here. Boom, we have an airtight Gannaway bag. This one happens to have the grommets for everything, including a nice tie-in for the chanter that did not involve, well, tying. It's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead, take those stoppers out of the inside. The Gannaway bags are a great product. I've used them on several sets of pipes over the years, and they've always held up well long-term. We're easy to deal with. The dressing and the priming do not require any heating, which is nice, especially if you're on the road and away from any ability to heat something up. And they're readily available. You can get these from just about anywhere, and I think that's great. So if you're a beginner, even if you're a first-time piper, I would consider perhaps a Gannaway bag with grommets. We're going to, again, start playing this bag shortly and figuring out everything that we need to do to set the rest of it up. But the bag is ready now to be played. And because we wiped out all that extra seasoning, we could start playing it right now. Well, thank you so much, everybody. If you got something out of this video, please think about giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting below with any thoughts you might have. I also have a Patreon where as little as $1 a month goes a really long way to helping support the channel. You'll see names now of folks scrolling up, including Ms. Carrie Tresek, my #1 supporter. These are people that support the channel monthly. Go ahead, head over there. You often get early access to videos and other perks, so check out my Patreon. I also give Skype and online lessons. Go ahead and head over to www.commandyourbagpipe.com or email me at the address you see here, and we'll get you going. I'm working with folks from all over the planet, and I hope to work with you soon. I also have a line of Command Your Bagpipe merchandise like the shirt I'm wearing here, but there's also hats and hoodies and water bottles and mugs, so head over to the merch store, get yourself some stuff, and let the world know that you command your bagpipe. Well, thank you again so much for watching, everybody. I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and until next time, cheers. In 5 minutes, starts now. All right, that's 5 minutes of rolling. Nothing has leaked out.